Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Friday Flight podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. I'm Jump Scare Jer, the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast.
Let's address the elephant in the room.
There's a huge one.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a minute, Geraldine. And I'll be honest with you. Usually we take a break and it's so nice to have my personal space and time. And then I have to come back here. You know, I feel like I missed you this time. I'm glad to be in your presence. And I feel like there's hope one day that we can become friends and not just co-hosts.
Are you under the weather?
No.
You know, what's funny is we were on a break intentionally, and then it ended up getting a little bit prolonged because I experienced sickness, and I believe your household experienced some sickness.
That's true, yeah.
There's just some nastiness going around beginning of the school year. Kids are gross, and people are gross, and it doesn't make it fun.
It's that time of the year, you know, everybody starts seeing each other and people get sick.
Yep.
Now we're back. I'm happy to be back. I don't know about you, Geraldine.
I am happy to be back. I'm just surprised that you said you missed me. I'm like, is this real life? I need to pinch myself, wake up.
Another reason, bigger reason I'm excited is we're covering Tim Burton movies.
We are.
Yeah.
We're covering Tim Burton this season, and it is just another kind of take like we did with Stephen King earlier in the year.
That's right.
We just focus on another auteur or artist, if you will.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tim Burton is one of the most wacky, weirdest directors out there, and I love him. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he had a huge hand in my growth and impact as
Did
a
he?
child. Yes, at 1,000%.
What is he like, Tim Burton?
I mean, he's weird, and he has no shame in that. He likes that he's weird, and he embraces it. I think that's what makes his work so unique and inspiring, is that it is uniquely his, and he has like a different vision and a different experience in his brain than other people do. So that's what I appreciate about him. So
Yeah, it's super cool to see this movie. I've seen it before. I watched it a year or two ago for the first time. And so this is the second time we're watching it. By the way, what movie are we doing?
we're doing Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice for the first one. Appropriate, right?
Very appropriate.
It's classic. I don't know if it was big when it came out or if it was more of a cult.
Did we just say it 3 times?
Where is it?
Have we summoned him? Oh my gosh.
I don't know if we did say it 3 times.
I think you did, because you said, I've watched this, and then you said, oh yeah, what are we covering? And I said it, and then you repeated it back. So that's three times, my friend. He would have been summoned by now, but maybe we're just not cool enough. He said he doesn't want to do parties, shows like that. He doesn't do 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So
Oh my gosh, can I just say some things about this movie, Geraldine? I've said it before. This time it was a little different for me.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like, you know, maybe by the last time I watched it, my prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed. And this time I appreciated a lot more aspects about it. One of them being Michael Keaton's portrayal of Beetlejuice. Like, oh my gosh, like he's so funny.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It is so funny. And I think as a child, you don't get to appreciate the humor. It goes way above your head. But also, that's the thing. And I am a big advocate for subtitles, because I feel like you miss out specifically on the things that they're saying, and that could just be the ADHD in me. I've seen this movie a million times, and I could tell you so many things about it, but like when you watch it every time, you find something new, like a new detail that you're like, oh my God, I never noticed that. And that's what I love about it. It's just, there's always something new to look at. It's just so detailed.
Right off the bat at the beginning of the movie, by the way, me and Bailey both had reactions to different things that we didn't realize. One, Bailey saw that it was rated PG.
It is.
And she was like, what?
Yeah.
I figured this would be at least PG-13, which would make sense to me.
It was before that, actually. So
was that?
it was before. And this is one of the first PG movies to have the word fuck in it.
I was about to say, he says the F-bomb, like, full on.
Oh, I didn't realize PG-13 was like a newer thing. It's always been around since I've been.
It's not like a newer thing, but for, I guess, this film's rating, it was newer in that aspect. Where if it were made today, it would have been PG-13.
I mean, in general, I'm going to be honest with you. If I watched this as a kid, it would scare me half to death. So much of it, like all like the face stuff.
That's the coolest part.
And there's even like a news reference in the movie, you know, a couple of them. So that's something Bailey pointed out is the PG, that she was surprised by that. Like I said, I watched this movie before, and you know what surprised me? The opening credits, Alec Baldwin's name came up.
Yeah, young
was like-
Baldwin. He's
I was like, where is Alec Baldwin in this movie? And then Bailey was like, he's the ghost dad guy. And I was like, what?
Adam Maitland.
And then he showed up on screen. I was like, that's Alec Baldwin.
I will say, I mean, and I don't like to shame people in that way, but like he definitely does not look the same in any regard. A lot of those celebrities do in some fashion. Like if you see Catherine O'Hara, she looks amazing still to this day, and you look at her and you're like, that's Catherine O'Hara. I mean, aging is weird for a lot of people anyway, but
No, I could definitely see it. I could definitely see Alec Baldwin then and now, being the same guy, same
I mean,
features.
his age, it just definitely, he looks very different. He presents very differently than when he did in this film. Of course, that's also character acting as well. But like, I mean, I don't know, just even in his face, like, I mean, he also was wearing glasses as his character. So just little things like that I feel like make a character that would make it really tricky to separate them from the person who plays
I
them.
do think that's kind of a benefit, though. I long say like with Johnny Depp, I'd have no clue what the man looks like. I just feel like every movie you watch him in, like if I was watching Alice in Wonderland and you were like,
I mean, to tell me you wouldn't be able to look at the Mad Hatter and be like, that's Johnny Depp.
No. Every movie I've seen him in, he looks completely different. He always has a different accent.
He's versatile.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's a benefit. I actually think it breaks my immersion when I recognize the actor more.
Oh, I know. I go to see those movies because the draw, like the appeal. Like I'm like, oh, Johnny Depp's in this movie. I love him, and I have to go see him because he's a fantastic actor. Like a lot of the time, that's kind of my experiences. I'm like, oh yes, because like the upcoming one, with Jenna Ortega. I'm like, oh, Jenna Ortega's in it. Sold already.
Well, you brought up Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara.
First time I watched the movie, I thought she was very annoying. If I'm gonna be honest.
I love Delia Deeds.
But this time around, yeah, I got more of that. I found her charming. I thought she was beautiful in the movie.
She's not appreciated enough, and I think that Charles Dietz does not deserve her. That's my take.
Interesting. I think Bailey would agree with you just on the grounds that Bailey doesn't think any man deserves his woman typically.
I mean, sure, but him in particular, he just doesn't care about his wife's passion.
Yeah, I will say they're both bad parents. I think
technically she's a step parent.
She's a bad step parent. While I feel like the ghost people, they're much better.
We'll talk about it because I have some points with that.
All right.
So just a little bit about it. Yes, we talked about it's PG. It's an hour and 32 minutes long.
I miss those times.
Now listen, I don't mind sitting in a theater for that long, but sometimes I'm like, I'm tired and it's dark. Yeah. Dark theaters make me sleepy.
Yeah, 90 minutes. Love it.
I will tell you, we went to go see the new Deadpool movie, and Patrick literally closed his eyes for 0.2 seconds and literally went and flashed our popcorn into my. And I was like, "What are you doing?"
Was he embarrassed?
He was like shocked, and I was like, "Did you just fall asleep right now?" And he was like, "Yeah, by accident."
I mean, Bailey will tell you, I'll fall asleep everywhere. Movies, concerts,
over anything.
I don't know. I feel like it could be like a storm outside and I could walk outside, lay down on the road, and fall asleep.
This movie was released in 1988. For 1988, amazing. I just have to say, similar, we just recently talked about Little Shop of Horrors. That one also being an 80s film as well, or later 80s as well. It's so shocking to me, when you go back and watch, and how unique and how seamless it is. There are some movies that are definitely aged, and some movies that definitely don't hold up near as well, but you can still appreciate the passion.
I mean, for being almost 40 years old, so much of
35.
it. Yeah, it's just so impressive. I mean, some of the stuff you can obviously clock for being whenever they're in the sand dune area with the worm fella. That does look super green screened, of course. So when the people are in that area, I mean, you can even see a silhouette of green.
It is not always green screen because they did have some of that built. So some of it is claymation, but I don't know exactly how I mean, of course, there's got to be some digitization on there. They're going to have to do some post-production stuff to get it and make it look more immersive. But of course, definitely looks dated.
I mean, talking about immersion. I was commenting about the little set, and I forgot, the beginning of the movie, you see a swooping shot of the town. Yeah. And as it goes on, you realize it's this tiny little set, like a recreation of the town. And it's a cool shot, but I think it's important because it establishes nearly half the movie is on this tiny set. And anytime you see any of the characters on the tiny set, I am so I believe in it so hard. I mean, the grass doesn't look like regular grass, or where they start digging up and it's cardboard pieces.
And you see the big cardboard. I want to make something like that.
I was telling Bailey that I had to remind myself that these are people, these are regular sized people on a set.
Yeah.
You know, and because the whole time, even when they're on a street, which, you know, looks just like a regular street, I still believe they were on that tiny little set. I don't know what they did to influence me like that, but it created so much immersion.
It's really fun and it's really creative.
It's impressive.
You just don't typically see movies like that a lot of the time. The only thing that I can think of that is relatively close to that, and it's not even a movie. Well, kind of. It's made for TV, but it was one of the Goosebumps trilogies. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was 3 parts. So it was 3 longer episodes. And it was dealing with something like that, and it was like a model, like a little, and I loved it because they got like sucked into it.
It's scary, but like it's also kind of interesting, right? Wouldn't it be cool to become like little tiny and small?
I often have that like dream. I was actually telling Patrick, and it's totally random, but like when I do laundry and I like open up that dryer and it's nice and dry and toasty, I'm like, I wish I was little so I could like get in there and be like, but
Patrick would shut the door on you, turn the dryer on.
he sure would.
Yeah.
Directed by Tim Burton, who we are focusing on this season. Written by Larry Wilson, Michael McDowell, and Warren Scarron. Music composition, of course, by none other than Danny Elfman, who does all of Tim Burton's scores, which I love. This is one of the most iconic scores as well.
I thought it was cool. I mean, halfway through, you know, this is one of Tim Burton's earlier works, I feel like, movie-wise.
Yeah.
And so to see Danny Elfman being on like this early is super cool.
Oh, yeah. He does such an amazing job. I adore his thought process, his movie making process for all of the scores that he does. He's just a weird guy, and I love him. He was originally an Oingo Boingo.
Yeah, super cool. I mean, what I personally like about a score is how upfront it is, and like it's so thematic. Like, for example, I think only a year after this, Tim Burton releases Batman, which is also Danny Elfman does a score on it, and the theme, Batman's theme, is just like the main line is just like 3 chords, and I think like that's great, and it does so much work in just a few, like it's so minimal, basically is what I'm saying. And I think it's super cool. That movie also featuring Michael Keaton, of course. I think it's funny though that, you know, he plays like this like joking white-faced clown, green-haired clown in this one.
Kind of resembling a Joker.
Yeah, but then he ends up playing Batman. But you can see him in this. He would have made a great Joker.
The range, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I love Michael Keaton. I love anything
He's great.
he's in. But Danny Elfman is just fantastic, and this score in particular, people have tried to play it in later years and have told Danny Elfman, this is too hard. This is impossible to play, and he loves it. He's like, I can't help it. I'm sorry. That's amazing. And he's just a weirdo. So if you guys ever get the opportunity to watch anything of Danny Elfman, do it. It's just so fun. He's a weird guy, and I love him.
Yeah, welcome on the show.
We have a cast. Stellar, love them. We'll talk about one in particular that will not be featured specifically for legal reasons in the next film.
Oh, okay.
So we have the Maitlands, which is Barbara and Adam Maitland, played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. Love them both. Young Alec Baldwin, hot, hot, hot.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Okay, so I wonder now. Earlier you were talking about he looks so different.
He does look different.
So is he still hot, hot, hot? Doesn't do it for you.
Now, I mean, I like him as an actor, and I think that he does a lot of really, really good films.
What do you like about him in his younger looking age?
He's just pretty. I was like, I always thought he was really, really pretty looking, but then when I realized, like, oh my God, that's Alec Baldwin, like, it was like, what?
He looks like Milo Thatch.
I could totally see that. Yeah.
Okay, it took me a moment. I was like, I really did.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And the lady that plays Barbara, I think she's really pretty too.
Gina Davis, beautiful.
She kind of, not the way her face looks necessarily, but I told Bailey early on, like her kind of vibe reminded me of Catherine Newton, specifically in like Abigail. Like the hair was like up and curly, and
it gives me some Lisa Frankenstein vibes. I could see that. Gina Davis has been in a lot of wonderful, wonderful films. I love her acting in general, so it's exciting to see anything with her as well. Of course, iconic Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton. We have the Dietzes, who are inhabitants that we don't want there. We have Delia Dietz, played by Catherine O'Hara, Lydia Dietz, played by Winona Ryder, and Charles Dietz, played by Jeffrey Jones. He is our problematic person in our cast here. He is a pedophile.
Yeah, well, I mean,
through and through.
90s, full of that in movies.
Well, yeah.
There had to be one.
I believe he, they say allegedly, of course, because they have to say that, but he admitted to it 14 years old. 14-year-old boy, which is just horrible and disgusting. and it sucks because it shatters your love for the characters in that.
It's hard to let go of that kind of thing. I've been trying to do better with that and have an easier time of like forgetting about that when I'm watching these movies. It's hard to do that. It's really hard. But I think now it just happens so often and we have to confront it so often
Yeah.
that it's like, unfortunately, it's horrible to say it that way, but it just, you become desensitized to that information, I feel like.
Well, they do incorporate his character because at least his character is still beloved. They incorporate his character into the next film, which they show in the movie trailers. So it's not a spoiler if you've watched the trailers.
What if you haven't?
But I know you have. You've gone to the movie.
I don't pay attention to these things.
Well, he's dead. So that's where it starts, is it's a funeral. But so they at least address him, but he's not in it.
Okay.
So, which is good because we don't want to support that, you know. But moving forward, we have Otho, who is one of my favorite characters.
See, now him, I still didn't like.
I still don't like him, but I love something about him. I just love how he's just funny. Like if you like pay attention to the dialogue and stuff, he's just very funny.
I think the only reason I have a hard time with him is because I've met people just like him that bug me, and so I'm like, oh yeah, it's one of these guys.
I just like him because he's just fun and he's sassy, and I just appreciate that humor. But I completely understand that side of it, like personality wise. But as a character, he's just a shit, and it's just funny.
Okay, I thought it was really funny towards the end of the movie. He's running away, and he gets like a spotlight thrown on him.
The pastel suit.
Yeah, and he gets switched to a different suit.
I never understood it, but I'm assuming in my adult brain, I'm like, oh, he probably is like, this is my nightmare. This is tacky.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the only way that I can make sense of it.
That's what I.
In my kid brain, I was like, why is he crying?
His worst nightmare.
I was like, he looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
But also Finlock, played by Glenn Shadix. He is no longer with us, R.I.P. We also have Marie Cheatham as Sarah Dean, who was Maxie Dean's wife, who is one of the people who get shot up into the ceiling, and they are excited about ghosts.
That was so funny.
Hilarious. Maxie Dean, played by Robert Goulet, or Goulette, however you pronounce it. I'm so sorry. Juno, played by Sylvia Sidney. I'm assuming by now she is probably deceased because she was already kind of old in that movie. Sorry, that's kind of mean, but
yeah, very morbid. This is a morbid podcast.
I mean, it is true. You know, she was pretty aged at that point, and you know.
But you never know. I mean, Jimmy Carter's about to turn 100 next
You know, that's true. I mean, but 35, 36 years later, it's kind of like maybe not. We'll have to see. We'll have to do some research on that. Then we have Miss Argentina, played by Patrice Martinez, and Jane Butterfield, the annoying realtor, played by Armie McEnroe.
She was funny.
She was funny but annoying.
I just like how caring she would say. But then, like for example, she showed up. Bailey pointed out she showed up to the funeral, but when they drove away, they like had this house already sold.
Well, you know what it is? It's just, you know, that is how the business is. You can't stop doing that stuff. You have to continue. And I'm not a real.
Never stop.
The grind never stops. But that's also capitalism, baby. That's how it works. Unfortunately, like even when like. We were recently talking about this because, like I said, we've both experienced some sickness lately in our households. And a lot of the time, people will work when they're sick because they can't afford not to. So that's just kind of
That's true.
Full circle.
And you know, you shouldn't be going to, like, especially if you work at a job like in public, you're not helping anybody else out if you're sick. But you need that paycheck. I mean, if you got kids, you got bills to pay, mouths to feed.
Yeah. So you kind of already answered one of my questions that I wanted to kind of talk to you about. So what are your thoughts generally on the characters? Like, is there one that you particularly like?
There's a few. You know what? I like all of them. I do like the dad. I like the mom, the Maitlands. No, sorry, the Dietz. I like both of them. Lydia is an icon, of course. Yeah. And the Maitlands are also amazing. I feel like they have so much chemistry with each other. Something I like about this movie is how casual it takes its morbidity. Yeah. It's like they die and they're like, there's no like huge range of like, oh my God, I'm dead. It's more of a like, oh, this sucks.
You're like, I don't think we survived our crash. And they're like, yeah. And it's like, oh.
And Barbara just like gets so frustrated with the book and then just like plops down on the bed. But that leads to like a charming development once they like establish a relationship with Lydia. And they decide, we don't want to scare this family away, actually. And that's charming to me. So I found most of the characters very enjoyable. Something I remember a lot from the first movie, from the first time I watched the movie, was that I thought Beetlejuice was a little too grotesque to me. I mean, he's a creep. Yes. He just, you know, we're talking about pedophiles. Beetlejuice is a quizzical pedophile. And it just didn't work for me that first time. But this time I was completely sold by the character. I was just like, he's funny, he is raunchy, but he does it in like the writing for it, like it's so like witty and it's quick and it's snappy.
Well, the writing was Michael Keaton. He ad-libbed 90% of his like line.
Wow, that's incredible.
He said it was like one of his most favorite jobs that he's done, and he also mentioned that like he was like, I just come to work and I say some of the weirdest things I've ever said in my life, and I like look around and see what people say, and then no one says anything different, like, hey, stop. So I just keep going.
Well, he was perfect for the job. He was
Perfect.
as he says in the movie,
Very
qualified.
Sure. Go ahead, shoot.
Well, for instance, what are your qualifications?
Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now, what do you think? You think I'm qualified?
Well, what I mean is, can you be scary?
Oh, I know you're asking me. Can I be scary? What do you think of this? You like it?
One of my favorite lines. One of my favorite lines ever.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it so much. Like it just, like I said, it's just so quick, snappy, and clever. And so like watch The Exorcist so many times, and it gets funnier each and every time.
I will say, as somebody who when I saw it as a child, I got scared of The Exorcist because I saw this iconic scene of the girl Reagan, who was possessed, doing a backbend. It's one of my top favorite horror films to this day, and it is funny in some regard to me. It's like sacrilegious and hilarious to me. And for other people, that might be more terrifying. Some people don't like religious horror. I personally think it's kind of funny. That's just me.
Mm. Oh, you think it's funny?
I think it's funny.
Okay.
Because I'm not religious. So, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So what is your experience generally with Tim Burton films? Because this is our Tim Burton season. So I'm just kind of curious, like, did you just on a whim say, oh yeah, let's watch Beetlejuice a couple of years ago? Or have you previously watched other films?
No, definitely. I mean, his name is kind of unavoidable in a lot of ways. And I'm a big fan of Batman. And, he does like one of the biggest Batman movies for a generation, defining the character. And so Tim Burton is a name that has come across very often. I mean, when I identify with the emo culture, and when I was in middle school, high school, that was a big part of my life. And so, of course, anything Tim Burton did was plastered everywhere because he had this like dark sensibility to his movies.
He's dark-sided.
So yeah, I've seen quite a few ones. This season though, I think this is the only one I've seen for this batch.
Oh, wow. That we'll be in for a treat. And of course, none of us have seen Beetlejuice because that is new. And
Yeah. I'm excited to see it though.
I am excited to see it as well. I mean, 35, 36 years, later, it's like, oh my God. But do you think that you'd make a good ghost? Like in this situation, would you want to haunt others in your home?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it. I am a religious person. I'm Catholic, and so there is like purgatory in the Catholic religion.
Okay.
So to be stuck there typically isn't something you want to be. But if it looks anything like this, I mean, I can see somebody having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I was about to say he'd haunt people just for the meme.
Yeah, I would. I like pulling a good funny on somebody. Just confusing people, just a little bit, just adjusting things.
I often wonder, like, if I were to get haunted, I'm always like, I wonder if I'd even notice, because I have ADHD.
And you're oblivious, yeah.
And I forget things all the time. And I'm like, oh, I probably just did that myself. Like, I gaslight myself all the time where I'm like, oh, I left this cabinet open. That was 1000% me. I'll be like, oh, I must have put the chairs upside down on the table.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe you're not actually, so like lackluster. Maybe you're just being haunted.
Maybe we got the ghosts up in here.
Well, I will say I had it, small tangent. When I was in high school, I had a teacher who always said that their house is haunted.
Really?
Yeah. But she said they're good ghosts. Like they're always doing good, nice things, that they never notice any like bad intent.
It's kind of like Casper. Love that movie.
I haven't seen that. We'll cover that in the future. Although I do remember you guys saying some weird comments about it.
No. As a child in my brain and in my child brain, not as an adult.
No. Even then, that's still odd to me because He's like bald and
No. Because they show Bailey, you know what I'm saying. You got me, right? When he turned into a child.
Yeah, he doesn't understand the context.
Yeah, he's not
Okay,
just
it
a
was a very
bald-headed goat.
age-appropriate crush.
no, I'm not questioning that part. I just questioning the.
You don't
He
have the
wasn't a little
context.
ghost at this point in the movie. In the movie, he personifies as a human boy, but he's not a human boy. He's a
He
ghost.
turns bald.
That's just what it looks like as a ghost. But he was
We'll
hot.
watch that movie sometime.
Anyway, okay, so my other question is, if you had to choose like how you die, or if you had a thought about like how you thought you would die in the future, like what would it be? What would be more like a better thought for you? Because to me, I feel like I would do something stupid, like eat too much cheese. Like I'd have an embarrassing like Elvis death. Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I tell Bailey this all the time. I have a martyr complex, and whenever like I'd be in high school, you know, school shootings became like this really big thing or whatever while we were in high school, and so I would think about it in the middle of class, and I'd be like, how do I like disarm him and save everybody?
No, don't be the hero. That's what they say. Don't be the hero.
Somebody has to be.
Well,
No, you don't.
What
you
about
don't
you?
have to. I don't know, Bailey. What do you think? Well, how would you think that you would
Oh, I'm never gonna die. I'm gonna be implanted into a little microchip, and I'm gonna become an android.
That's cool. If there's an opportunity for that, I would like to play God.
You know, the first
You
one will
know,
be Elon
science.
Musk, and it's not gonna work. But you know, like a couple, like 20 years after that, then I'll be okay to become an android.
Yeah, I would I just feel like it would be something like self-neglecting, like not taking care of me. So something like that would creep up on me and I'd be like, oh,
Probably. I could definitely see that. You know,
burnout is real.
yeah, I'm of the belief of like if you don't go to the doctor for it, you don't have it. So like if the doctor doesn't tell you that you're have diabetes, you don't have it until the doctor diagnoses you with it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you're speaking facts.
Yeah,
man.
that's what I'm saying. Just don't go to the doctor and you're fine.
I typically do go to the doctor.
Yeah, you go a lot. You have issues.
Well, once you get that insurance, you're like, let's go. Would you follow the handbook, the handbook for the recently deceased, or would you employ Beetlejuice to help you? If you
Definitely play Beetlejuice. I mean, I keep referring to Bailey, and that's because she knows me very well.
okay,
And I love AI. I'm constant, or even with Bailey, I tell her, or you've seen me too, Geraldine, on the podcast. I don't like doing the stuff, so I kind of micromanage, and I'm like, you do this, and you like
you delegate.
yeah, I delegate. I'm a big time delegator.
You're like, this is not. I am just overseeing everyone.
Yes.
else. I have rules for everyone else.
I do that with you guys. I do that with AI, like all that stuff. I'm like, you do it for me. Figure this out for me. And so like,
Let's do it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would be the same way. I wouldn't want to read the dang book. There's this Beetlejuice guy. I'll have him do it. For
Actually,
me.
reading in the afterlife.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I enjoy reading, but it has to be enticing.
Yes.
If I'm not enticed,
That book doesn't seem enticing. It's just boring.
there's no diagrams. I need diagrams and I need
Visual.
pictures. I need like how to like steps. How to
Where
hunt.
where are the? I mean, I get upset when the menu at a restaurant doesn't have pictures of the food on it.
Like, how am I gonna know?
Yeah.
I'm like, can you tell me more about this? And then I feel embarrassed for asking more clarification.
Well, even then,
Caseworker would be like, get out of my office.
you'd have to be waiting in there for a long time.
I would be, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Now, how would you specifically haunt your inhabitants? And what if the inhabitants, had an animal that did give you away? Because that is something that happens.
I don't know. I mean, in this movie, they go for like scaring everybody, but I kind of feel like like I said, I would do like small, tedious things to like.
You like,
I would just make them paranoid, make them crazy. They're never gonna see the TV remote
no,
ever again.
like that's when they don't ever trust their family members, and they're like, get up, stand up right now.
They put their drink down on the counter, and you move it like 5 inches. So when they go to reach for it, they knock it over.
Yeah, exactly. Percy Bailey, you'd be perfect at this.
Yeah, you're like, I need to inconvenience these people and like make them turn on each other. So it's more like psychological warfare. I see. No, I would want to scare the crap out
You'd
of
scare
people.
them? Are you good at scaring though?
I'm okay at it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, my family and I used to do that. Like we would like hide little things down low and jump out and stuff like that.
I feel like you'd even just enjoy, even not to get them out of there. I feel like you'd enjoy just scaring people in the afterlife.
Yeah. I mean, I play this little game called Haunt the House. It's an adorable little ghost game and it's really cozy. And you just scare the crap out of the people and you get points and stuff and you're supposed to scare them and you can like possess things and make it move and stuff. And the people were like,
Yeah.
and it's so
You got practice.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like,
mischievous.
I would call me Geraldine, the jarring ghost. I don't know. I was trying to think of something.
It's okay. It's
No,
not great, but
it's but Casper the Friendly Ghost, man, that makes sense. I should have just done something like that. Okay, so you think Beetlejuice is a cool guy?
he's a funny guy.
Would you want to be friends with him?
Oh gosh, that'd be really hard. I think.
You'd be like, AB, help me out here.
Yeah, I would definitely seek for his help because I don't want to read that manual.
You'd be like, would you like get him to help you with anything in this afterlife?
Yeah. I mean, I'm already dead. You know, how bad can the consequences be?
Yeah, but then, he's trying to like take over that family and stuff.
Yeah.
Marry a minor.
Mhm.
Weird shit. Would you hold your homie accountable?
You'd be enabling him.
I am known to be an enabler, so maybe it just aligns with me.
And this is just a general question just for me because I think it's kind of fun. Because I saw this in the movie and I was like, I want to ride on the sandworm. Would you want to ride on the sandworm as well?
It depends if I have an audience. I'm brave enough to do anything if people are watching.
So you like peer pressure?
It's not that I like peer pressure.
It's more like he likes being entertaining.
Yeah, that's true.
You're a jester.
I was telling Bailey the other day, or a group of friends that if I fell down and like I didn't have anybody around me, I'd feel embarrassed, right? Like if I was at like Planet Fitness and I fell down, and which I've come close to doing because I don't wear shoes. I don't wear shoes, and my chanclas are like slippery as hell. And so, anyway, if I fell down and I was by myself, I'd feel embarrassed. But if I was with a group of friends, like if I was with you or Patrick,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't feel embarrassed. I think it'd be funny, So that's it, kind of the same thing. I wouldn't feel brave enough to do it if I was by myself. But if people were watching me, I'd be like, hey, watch this.
We're just going to do a quick little plot refresh just to kind of, remind us what the movie's about roughly, because we kind of just jump right in. But we have Barbara and Adam Maitland who are on a vacation for like 2 weeks or so, and they're just in their big house, and then they keep getting bothered by their annoying realtor friend who is Jane Butterfield, and she's like, hey, I have a really good offer from this guy from New York, and he wants to buy your house, and they're like, no, Jane, we're not interested. And it's alluded at this point as well. It's not explicitly stated, but she makes a comment, one of those offhanded comments that people make towards women about, this house should be like, it should be for a family, people with children. But it's kind of alluded that it might be a sore spot for Adam and Barbara, as they don't have children in the film, but they, mention like, oh, we'll try again on this vacation.
Yeah.
And that's sad, but at the same time, we get to meet the Dietzes because they pass away. So they get not killed, but they die because they crash into this bridge and their life is on the line by a dog.
Yeah.
And then that dog moves.
See, that's what I mean about this movie being so casually morbid.
Yeah.
Just like,
Well, it was supposed to be worse, so we'll talk about that too. I have it written down. It's supposed to be a little bit more graphic, but they definitely toned it down, thankfully so, because I think it wouldn't have been what it is.
Okay.
But anyway, so they decline that offer, and then ultimately they make a trip to town and they die on their way back home, which is really, really sad because they were on vacation. So then their realtor friend's like, anyway, let's sell the house. And so then we have the Dietzes move in, and we have Delia and Charles and Lydia. And they are a strange bunch, but they move in, and Delia changes everything in the house because she's like, the iconic line, I think you guys had a clip of it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't let me gut out this house and make it my own, I will go and stay, and I will take you with me.
Iconic. I get it, because I could not live in an old home that is just that way.
Not your vibe.
Not my vibe. I would need to make it me.
Yeah. And you've done so here. You have all this like horror and movie.
I also try to, keep things, for my partner as well, because he also enjoys sports. And I'm like, cool, I'll just incorporate that stuff as well. And then you'll just have to let me decorate it so that it, kind of, vibes together. So,
Yeah.
I'm not like limited. I don't really stick to certain themes. I just like my stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And I like it to be me. So I get that. And my mom is the same way.
Yeah. It's almost like an attraction walking through.
It's amazing.
It's fully incorporated too. Like you'll go to the bathroom.
So cool. Yeah. You're being immersed there. It's amazing. But anyway, so Delia changes the house. Charles, is excited, and he's like, oh yeah, we have a new house, but he didn't want to change anything about it. He gets to keep Adam's study, and they don't change anything about it, which is something that's really interesting, because they even keep their old like wedding photo, Adam and Barb's wedding photo in there. I didn't notice that. And then Barbara and Adam are like, what the hell? We're dead. And these people are here. We need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
They try multiple attempts to get rid of them, and it doesn't go well. So then they, meet their caseworker, Juno, and they're told to, not talk about this, bioexorcist named Beetlejuice because he is unconventional and not easy to work with others as well. And then at some point they cave and they employ Beetlejuice for help to get these people out. But then they realize it's not so bad living with them. And so then in the end, they all share the same space and are happy together.
Yeah, I feel like they all go through like an experience that kind of bonds them.
Yeah.
And helps them understand each other's perspective a little bit.
Yes, it does. And then that's kind of where we leave off for the film. But there's so many cool bits that I didn't even realize, and it was really cool to read them as I was watching the film and stuff, because this movie has been a staple in my life and in my family's life for so long. And again, like this is something that I've grown up with for many, many years. So I mean, everyone knows Beetlejuice. Everyone knows him.
Iconic.
Yeah, it's so iconic that it's like even in like top movie lists. It's like some of like funny movies.
And also visually, that like black and white suit that he wears,
Absolutely. So yeah, fun fact. We have multiple to go through. The studio originally wanted to call the film House Ghosts, but as a joke, Tim Burton suggested the name be Scared Sheetless, and was horrified when the studio actually considered using it.
Yeah, that's rough. That is really rough. And
House Ghosts, man, that's just so on the nose.
But I will say, Beetlejuice, that's a big risk for a title. I mean, that's just so, the movie's really out there, but like the idea of like having going to a movie called Beetlejuice, I feel like that would confuse people.
Yeah.
But over time, it's iconic. And when you say it now, people know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's one of those things you have to say it 3 times. It's like, oh, kind of like the legends of Bloody Mary, Candyman. Catherine O'Hara met her future husband, production designer Bo Welch, while making this film. According to Welch, Tim Burton said he should ask her out near the end of filming. He said, it didn't even occur to me that I was even supposed to talk to actors, but since Tim told me to, I did, and then we dated and were married, and here we are today.
Oh, wow.
When Glenn Shadix, who played Otho, died in September of 2010, the last song performed at his memorial service was Deo, the Banana Boat song, which was used in the dinner party scene.
That's right, yeah. I think I saw that scene before I saw the rest of the movie.
Really?
Yeah, just scrolling online somewhere, and it popped up, and I was like, oh, wow.
It's such a fun scene.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so impressive also just just performance-wise. Like, they have these actors in real life, they're not actually possessed, of course.
Right.
They have to, play and move their body as if they're doing something that is that they're not in control of. And I think it's amazing.
So this was something that I did not know anything about. But when Adam and Barbara are in the office for Juno, their caseworker, the voice on the PA system announces Flight 409 is arriving at Gate 3. United Airlines Flight 409 crashed into a mountain in Wyoming on October 6, 1955, killing all passengers and crew aboard. At the time, it was one of the worst plane crashes in history. 3 plane crashes in 1955 had a total of 66 casualties. To this day, no one knows why it crashed.
Wow.
Isn't that fucked up?
Yeah, that stuff is so
casually morbid, like you stated. That's like some of those, like the football players specifically, were part of that crash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up, kind of shocking.
Something, again, you don't think about it when you're watching the movie. Michael Keaton playing the title character only appears in 14.5 minutes of the film.
Oh, I noticed this time. I was like, he doesn't even come. He doesn't start showing up until like halfway through the movie. And then
He's only in like the iconic striped suit for like maybe a minute.
he's barely in that suit.
My favorite outfit personally is the wedding outfit.
What I love, something about him transitioning, he transitions from the black and white into that. And it's so cool because the camera just flips and zooms out and like you can see the magic where it's like he's suddenly wearing something else. And when it cuts to Lydia, she's suddenly wearing, and she's like looking at herself, discovering it.
Iconic. This is so amazing.
Yeah, the filmmaking is incredible.
It is. So all the people in the waiting room, so back in Juno and, all of that, in the office are in the same condition as when they died, and the way that they died is shown clearly. However, the Maitlands, who drowned are not wet, and Tim Burton felt that keeping the actors wet all the time would be too uncomfortable. And I was like, that's actually a good point. Didn't think about it. But if you think about it, I have a list of some of the characters that we encounter at that waiting room. And one of them was a camper who was bitten by a rattlesnake in like a sleeping bag. I didn't notice it until like one of my more recent watch throughs, and I was like, oh my God, I never even noticed them. And then we have a diner who choked on what looks like to be a chicken bone. We have a surfer who was attacked by a shark with someone who has like a shark on his leg. A girl, evidently a magician's assistant, with that went over my head. Didn't even think about that. Who was sawed in half at the torso. We have the shrunken head man, and then a smoker who is a burn victim.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Hilarious.
Like,
It makes you think of SpongeBob.
oh yeah, from that chocolate episode.
It's just funny, but morbid. But I like
Yeah, it is more of the guy who got run over.
Yeah.
And he just that's scary
Yes,
to look at.
I love him. He's actually super funny.
How do I look? I'm feeling pretty flat.
The visual effects budget was only $1 million, a major factor in Tim Burton deciding to make the effects look as tacky and B-movie as possible. I think that in some regard it succeeded in that way, but also I think it overexceeded that. I don't think it's
Yeah.
tacky to me.
Yeah, I mean it's both, I think.
I would say.
But it's impressive. Like I think it looks intentional, like all of it.
Yeah.
And I think that, and it's proud of it, I feel like.
So this is the part where I was telling you about there was a planned sequel.
Okay.
And it sounds terrible. So the movie's box office success created plans for a sequel, Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian.
Ooh,
I don't think it sounds good, but I'm glad
I'm interested.
the script was commissioned, and Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder both signed on to reprise their respective roles. Tim Burton lost interest in the project and went on to direct Batman and Batman Returns instead. So the sequel is now scheduled, of course, for release this year, September, but literally this weekend, this upcoming weekend,
We're gonna be there.
with the return of Keaton, Ryder, and O'Hara. So cool, but it's probably not going to be as Hawaiian.
It's one of those things, in a different timeline,
Yeah.
But I'm so glad because so thankful to have Michael Keaton's Batman and Tim Burton and Danny Elfman behind the directing and making the music. So I'm glad it wasn't me, I guess.
I saw an article where Winona Ryder was quoted saying that the reason it took 30 years to make a Beetlejuice sequel is because they were waiting for Jenna Ortega to be born.
Cutest thing ever.
That is really cute, yeah. But it's it's one of those things. I mean, Lydia is so iconic, and I feel like
The Ghostbusters situation where like they tried to put through other movies, but they were just like, no. And then
yeah.
you know,
I mean, we'll find out soon whether or not whether it holds up. But sometimes it is finding the right people.
yeah, I have full faith in it. I have no idea where the story's gonna go. I have like theories and thoughts maybe, but that's really all that I got. I'm like,
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited to see Jenna Ortega. I support her a lot. I love her. She's in that Taste music video with Sabrina Carpenter. Yeah, exactly. So she's in it. This is her vibe.
her vibe, 1000%. So Beetlejuice reveals a hideous, unseen face to Adam and Barbara when they are in the model. Originally, Beetlejuice's scary face was going to be seen, and an elaborate makeup effect was created to that end, but ultimately went unused. I've never seen it. Couldn't find it. Would love to see it. But they also do something like that, it seems. So they kind of stick with that comic, like, we're not going to show you what it is.
I love that. I actually love it. We played that clip earlier when
Interest, though.
it does pique my interest, but I think it comes off as even scarier to me. Like anything you would have shown me probably wouldn't be actually as scary.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess the idea of it being scary, but you'd have no idea, and it scared them, and you're like,
Yeah,
what could it be?
Because there's nothing scarier than with them.
That's true. That's true. According to Dick Cavett, Tim Burton tried to film the scene where the shrimp jump off the plates and attack the dinner party by positioning stagehands beneath the table and throwing them. Cavett suggested placing the shrimp on their faces, filming them as they fell off, then running the film in reverse, which Burton ended up doing.
That's interesting. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, like I said earlier, the whole dancing and singing is super cool. And that kind of performance, and then to end with that grab.
If any logical human would not have been like, ha, that was so cool and fun, I would have been like,
No, I don't know about you. I feel like you might have been one of the ones that was like, that's great.
no, I am terrified of actual spooky things happening IRL, that I would have been one of the ones running. And they're like, we're going to see him scatter.
Yeah.
I would have been, Like everywhere, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't like stuff really happening like that IRL because it's scary and terrifying in nature. Because like those are things you can't really control, but they're like things we don't understand.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe this really happened to somebody.
Yeah, you never know. According to Tim Burton, it took a lot of time to convince cast members to sign as they thought the script was too weird.
I mean, it's weird.
It is weird. It's out there for sure. Gina Davis was the only cast member who would commit to the project at first, and I do have a clip of her saying why she committed to it. So I'll play that in just a moment too. Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and Sylvia Sidney, who played Juno, all said no at least once. Producer David Geffen convinced Michael Keaton's manager to convince Keaton to meet with Burton. Once Keaton said yes, Burton personally saw Sidney and begged her to do the movie. Then he flew out to meet with O'Hara to convince her.
Wow. So it was like a domino effect.
Yeah, it sounds like once people were like, okay.
That's why sometimes you gotta lie. Just be like, oh, he's gonna do it. Oh, okay, I'll do it. And then you're like, oh, he'll do it.
Let me pull up that one really quickly because that one is fascinating to hear them talk about it.
Things happen where we're not very good at haunting our house, and we don't do a very good job, so we have to get help. So we get Michael Keaton comes and as a
He's
as a
dead.
ghost
He's
goes.
dead in this film and he's dead in this town. He's a living doll to me.
She's a really great character. But you know, she's real.
I myself am strange and unusual.
You know, she's like, you know, when you get in those moods where you feel really dramatic and you just sigh all the time? Well, she's like that all the time.
I play, I guess, a bad stepmother. Not really. I'm misdirected, ill-directed. Woman who thinks she's an artist and was just too defensive and too insecure and too much of a nutcase to succeed at anything, including being a mother or stepmother or wife. But I'm trying.
It's the most creative of all the movies I've done.
Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Show up 6 o'clock every morning, 3.5 hours of makeup, hour and a half, taking it off at night, doing and saying some of the oddest, strangest things I've ever said in front of a camera, and having one hell of a good time.
I just want you two to know you're welcome at our house anytime you want to come over.
Beetlejuice is kind of a creepy little devilish, funny character, guy who's been dead for 300 years. And he scares the living out of us.
You're going to see things in this movie you've never seen before. I think people are going to be mind blown by what they see on a visual level.
I'm alive for a few scenes in the beginning, but then basically I'm your average dead person in this movie, and finding out what that's all about.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
I was attracted to this movie because it's so unique. You know, when I read it, I said, well, I just have to be in this movie. I try to think about how people will react when they see it, and I think they'll just say, oh, what was that? Did you see that movie? It's like, you have to see it, it's weird.
I've learned a lot about special effects and directing from the director Tim Burton, who's great. It's gonna go down in my memory as one of the great movies that I'll ever work on, I think.
You know, I love Gina Davis's attitude about it. Be like, this is weird and I'm excited to be in it. Seeing Winona Ryder talk about like, oh, I'm going to remember this movie and it's going to be iconic for me. I mean, she was right. Yeah. And also in general, something about Lydia Dietz is like, I think it's so funny how she's like, well, it says in the book, like, you know, you're strange and unusual. I'm strange and unusual. It's so like a Jughead thing about like being weird. It's like, yeah, that's me, you know.
I love her. I think that in some regard, I mean, obviously it's alluded that she's like, we don't necessarily know what she's going through because they don't show a lot of maybe behind the scenes for her life. We just kind of meet them and we're kind of left to assume some of the inner workings of the dynamic, and it doesn't seem very functional in general.
No, she seems very miserable.
And neglected.
Yeah.
And like I mean, Charles does who knows what, you know, all day long. And then you have Delia who, you know, doesn't really care. And she's so consumed with, you know, people's perception.
Yeah.
The approval from others. But I think that she is a good artist.
Me too, yeah.
Very unique. So, I mean, it definitely stands out too.
I mean, she reminds you a lot of you, honestly. The character. She's like manic, she's insecure, she's stressed out.
I don't like that I'm in this.
But you like her. You like her character.
I like her character,
Uh-oh.
but I would be nurturing as a stepmother. I would be, or a mother.
Right. Yeah.
There would be a huge difference because I very greatly love my fur babies. Like feeling I gave birth to them. I know that that's a little bit strange.
It
But
is very strange. Yeah.
anyway, so I thought that was really, really fun. Something else that I did not notice in this film, the Maitland's bumper sticker says, "I break for animals."
Oh, really? That's funny.
Is that kind of messed up?
Yeah.
Delia has a knack for repurposing clothing to wear in different styles. In one scene, Delia wears the red sweater that Charles wore in a previous scene, except as pants. So she wears the sweater upside down with her legs in the armholes and held up around her waist with suspenders.
Oh, wow.
I did not even notice that one.
No, I didn't either.
But the other one that I did notice, it's more of her iconic look as well. During the Deets' first dinner in their new house, Delia is seen with an elaborate decorative black hairband wrapped around her head that nearly resembles feathers, but it's actually women's gloves. It's like a black gloves. Love it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, it's just unique, your own style.
Look at her just being unapologetically herself.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's why I think Charles, in some regard, does not deserve her because it doesn't feel like he is like passionate for her.
It's kind of like yin yang, where I feel like she's really out.
So
and
he has
he's
to
like
be.
boring. And so like that kind of balance, like he grounds her a little bit is what I get the sense of. And they kind of show it off at the end too, where she's like they make comments about like, oh, who am I kidding? You're never wrong. And at the very end, like, or you never make bad decisions. And at the very end, something that Delia got from the experience is she got some inspiration for her art.
Yeah.
And she has like this Michael Keaton Beetlejuice head sculpture that she's
I would love to make that.
and she scares him. So I don't know. They do.
And he's like, and she's like, he likes it. I think it's cute. It works in their own way, but they don't do well enough showing it until towards the end.
Mhm.
But because like my mom and I talked about this because we've watched it together recently as well, and it's like annoying in some regard because they invite all these people over during that scene, the big dinner scene, and her agent is there, and he's like, "Delia, you're a flake. You've always been a flake," and it's like, you saw this ghost shit happen, so you think that she's lying about it? They're gaslighting her, it feels like. And I'm like, I'm mad for her.
Yeah, maybe she has good reason to be insecure and like try so hard to impress everybody when they all just shut her down.
Yeah, because like they're all like laughing about it, having a good time, and they're like, ha 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 ha, ha. Ghost, like they experienced that. And then he's like, yeah, bitch, I still don't think that happened. You're a flake. And I'm like, what?
Come on.
Like in my brain, I'm like doing the math for her, and I'm like, did you not just witness the same thing?
Yeah.
Crazy. Some other cool bits, along with Spaceballs, Big, and Caddyshack 2, like we mentioned, it is notable that this movie does contain the F word in the film in a rated PG during the new PG-13 era. So I think that if it were made today, of course it would be PG-13, but that was the first time, nice fucking model, huh?
I mean, I'm excited to see the sequel because I mean, I wonder how far this movie is one of those things we always say about 80s. It can't be made today. I just mean like the substance. I mean, I doubt we'd have like him trying to marry a 14-year-old girl.
Well,
if it was made today.
In that regard, I understand what you're saying too. But I mean, he did say like, oh, I just have to do that in order to be able to.
Well, even with Barbara,
like trying to look under her dress.
Yes, and like squeezing and tickling her. I don't know if we'd have that today. Not saying that I dismiss that in this version of the movie. I think it's funny, but I just think executives and studios would be like, oh no, let's not do all that. We don't want to fit.
What's weird about it is like, if you go back and watch the movies that we watched growing up, like this movie I watched growing up, but like Shrek, for example. We don't pick up on the adult humor, but like this was rated PG, so to me that means like, oh, you can watch as a family and it's okay kind of thing. And to me that means like, oh yeah, like the kids can enjoy it, the adults can enjoy it, and there's a lot of adult humor to enjoy that like I did not pick up on as a child, never crossed my brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Ever. And then as an adult I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, I appreciate it in Pixar movies. You talked about that nice fucking set.
Or nice fucking model.
Yeah. Yeah, Bailey was telling me that I think she's heard somewhere that like the tree wasn't meant to be knocked over.
I actually have that. I have that here. During the scene in the graveyard after the Maitlands leave, when Beetlejuice gets mad and kicks the tree, originally the tree was not supposed to fall, but during that take, Michael Keaton kicks the tree and it falls, to which he ad-libs the line, "Nice fucking model." It squeezes his crotch twice, which is accompanied by the honking noises. Keaton says that to the set designer who messed up. Director Tim Burton loved it so much that he left the blooper in the film. Great.
That is so funny.
Things like that were not meant to happen. I mean, that makes sense because it's a model. And then like in model, like in the movie, you see, Adam putting the tree back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
If you watch it again, you can see Adam, like the tree has fallen over in the model.
oh man, that's just amazing. That's just something.
Detail.
Yeah, and that's just something you see when it's like a bunch of people really like everything is a physical element.
Yes.
You know? Whereas now it's just different. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's necessarily like worse or anything, but it's just that's why I think we have so much nostalgia and there's so much.
Well, that's why nostalgia always sells and it always does well. Even if like people are burned out by like the remakes or the sequels, people are still going to show up because it means something to them.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, these movies, I mean, for example, Beetlejuice has an early screening on like tomorrow, Wednesday, and I was looking at potentially trying to go to that. All of the seats are full. Sold out immediately. And I'm not surprised by that at all.
I'm happy.
I think it's one of the most highly anticipated films of this year, I would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all been waiting for it. We heard rumors for a while, and then when it was confirmed, we were all like, oh my God, it's happening. And I didn't expect it to ever happen. I thought, like people always make fake trailers. Like,
But I'm happier.
I'm very excited about it, but I grew up, I love Beetlejuice and I love Winona Ryder. It's got the same people. To also see what they're going to do with this like storyline, I have no idea.
Me neither.
We're going in blind.
If I'm being honest, all I'm looking for in the new movie is just for it to just remind me of the first one.
To be fun.
Yeah, if it's just a little fun and if Beetlejuice feels like Beetlejuice, it's done enough for me.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it to be like some spectacular piece of art or anything. So my expectations are pretty low.
Mine are not like low, but they're not like high either. I'm just kind of like, I'm just excited. I can't
too.
explain it. Like,
I haven't even thought about it much, really. I'm just like happy to be back in the theater watching it.
I'm like excited, but like nervous because I'm like, I can't believe that I'm at because like I was not alive when this movie came out.
Yeah.
But I grew up watching it. That's kind of a weird, like I don't know, like milestone. Because like we get to see the sequel, and then who knows, maybe years later they'll make another one.
Yeah.
Like because like they do that sometimes.
And that's why I love, by the way, when they put movies from decades before back in theaters. Because like you said, I never got a chance to see Beetlejuice in theaters. I wasn't born yet either. And so like when they put it in the theater, it's like, this is my opportunity to get that experience.
Yep.
So I think it's awesome.
I think it is awesome. I agree. I know you're big on box office information. It's really fun. $15 million budget. They earned over $74 million at the box office worldwide.
Awesome. Beautiful.
So,
That's like 5 times its budget.
yeah, that's not bad at all. I think opening weekend it stated they earned $8 million, which is half the budget.
That's amazing. And I'm sure like it's probably made double that in like VHS rentals and DVD sales by this point.
Oh my God, yeah, there's no telling. Let me see here. There's so many like fun facts to go through, so I'll try to pick just a few different ones because I don't want to. There's so many things to talk about with it. So Angelica Houston, who plays in the newer versions of the Addams Family movies, and she was originally meant to play Delia, but she was ill and couldn't come in for filming. So I think that she would have been a really cool Delia Dietz.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Fun. Obviously, the success of this film did spark an animated series that actually did really well.
Really? I just before we left to come to the studio to record this episode, like I saw like a little thing on YouTube or something. It looked like an animated Beetlejuice. I'd never heard about this.
Yeah. It came after the success of the movie. I want to say there are several different seasons. I don't know how many, but I know you can watch them all on Tubi TV.
Interesting.
TV free, which is great.
I'll have to check it out. If anybody watching or listening to this has seen it, please comment and let me know. Like, did you watch it? Like,
Well, that's actually, they have like an original Lydia costume from that animated series that my mom actually has as well. And it's like almost like a spider web. And you've probably seen it at Spirit Halloween, I'm sure.
Okay.
But it's like red. So like these kind of colors, like red and black, but it's like a spider web type thing. And it almost looks like a little, what's the word? Almost like a, yeah, like that. Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's really,
that's
really
cool. I'll have to
Cute.
check it out. The first time I watched this movie, I don't think I had the appreciation that I do now. I'm so happy and I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you.
Getting a Beetlejuice costume would be so cool.
Now, that's like every week we have been going to Spirit Halloween because they get new things every week. So we've been going every single week.
Wow. I'm not
And
surprised.
we get something every time. And it is unfortunate because we're not trying to spend a lot of money. And I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe.
I would not be surprised if this is a season where you spend the most amount of money.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a given.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, and there's also like a local store that just opened up recently, Spookies. And it's mostly costumes. Not bad. They have new stuff coming every week too, so we'll probably just continue to go every week.
So has your husband adopted your horror sensibilities a little?
Well, he's always loved Halloween. Halloween's been his favorite, and that was one of our like things that we had in common. We bonded over Nightmare Before Christmas because that was one of our favorite movies ever, and I was like, oh my god, like that's fun. And we also bonded over like our love for Halloween. Kirstie Alley was the first choice for the role of Barbara, but the producers of Cheers wouldn't let her out of her contract to take the role. Sigourney Weaver, Linda Blair, who plays Reagan in the original Exorcist, Goldie Hawn, Laura Dern, and Linda Hamilton were also considered for the role. According to Winona Ryder, in a Harper's Bazaar YouTube interview at the very beginning, she went to the sound stages to meet Tim Burton. A guy walked in who she thought was just from the art department, and they talked for a while about things like Edward Gorey and different movies. After about a half hour, she asked him if he knew when Tim Burton was going to show up. And then he was like, oh yeah, that's me. And she was blown away. And she had an image in her mind at the time of a director being much older and more traditional, but she just felt really comfortable with him. And at the end of their talking, he let her know that he did really want her to do it, and she was very excited.
That's interesting. I mean, there's some things. Okay, this is gonna be quite a tangent. I'm gonna be real with you, but like Disney.
Yeah.
Okay? Whenever you see the Disney logo,
Yeah.
the D ain't a D. I never thought that D was a D.
Well, I guess a backwards G.
Yeah. That's the same thing for me. And Tim Burton's kind of like that to me, where like I feel like I know his name, and it's just seeing his name written out evokes emotion in me, and I'm way more familiar to that than like when I first saw what he looked like. I didn't like I was familiar with his work long before I knew what he looked like. So when I looked at it, it was like, oh wow, like it's a person, it's a real person that exists. And we were talking earlier about like how I can't tell when Johnny Depp is in a movie. Michael Keaton, I feel like in this movie also completely disappears into his role. And Bailey also said the same thing. She's watched it before, but when we watched it for the first time together, I was like, that's Michael Keaton, by the way. And she was like, oh my God, that is Michael Keaton.
It's so strange because like we were literally just watching this interview, a side by side of him with no makeup on versus him with the makeup on, and I'm like,
completely personifies a different person.
Absolutely. Of course, we know that Beetlejuice ended up being a Broadway musical. So it went to Broadway March 2019 after pre-Broadway at the National Theater in Washington, D.C., starting mid-October of 2018. So it officially went to Broadway in 2019.
I would love to see
successful musical.
I hope they tour it. If they don't already, I would love to see it.
Believe it or not, I have not listened to it. I've not watched it, and I need to. And I know that I'm missing out, but I will. I promise.
I know a song or two from it.
That'll be my homework. I know that one part where it's like Beetlejuice, and then like they build up.
Yeah. Bailey likes that whole being dead thing.
Yeah. Appropriate to the theme of Beetlejuice, the man who wrote the original screenplay, Michael McDowell, was both personally and professionally fixated on death and dying, which makes sense because of the theme. When he received the doctorate in English literature from Brandeis University, or Brandeis, however you pronounce it, his PhD dissertation was titled American Attitudes Toward Death, 1825 to 1865. He was a prolific novelist in the mystery, thriller, and horror genres, especially Southern Gothic. Very interesting. He also, with his longtime romantic partner, theater professor Lawrence Senelek, amassed a large personal collection of historical death memorabilia, including memorial and funeral cards, sheet music for songs about death, post-mortem relics such as human hair art, and memento mori jewelry, ads for funeral gowns, headstones, other documents related to funeral or funerary industry, and photographs running the gamut from so-called spirit photography, also known as post-mortem photography, scams to post-mortem images of deceased children and adults, to police department photos of from grisly crime scenes. After McDowell died, The Northwestern University Special Collections Library purchased the death memorabilia from Senelic, and an exhibit of the collection went on to display in 2013, which is very cool.
Yeah, that is cool, and I don't blame him. I feel very guilty about this, but I have such a strong morbid curiosity, and sometimes it's to a fault, and it's not good for me. You know, you mentioned that he even collected like gruesome, like police report photography. Yeah.
I can understand the appeal. I understand why people are fascinated by it because it's something you don't understand. But
It's curious. I mean, it's something that's going to happen to all.
In some regard, though, like things like I wouldn't want to collect it myself, but I am interested in the whole concept of postmortem photography because I'm like, people would just stand next to the coffin.
I mean, that's what happens today. You know,
But
some cultures do that.
it's just creepy to me, but it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. There's a show right now on Netflix. It's called like My Crazy Ex or something.
Okay.
And it's like a true crime about like exes.
I'm watching one about family members that they didn't know. They just kind of like snapped at some point. It's called Evil Lives Here. It's on Matt.
Well, I'm gonna freaking watch it.
I'm hooked.
This is the thing. Like, this is why I feel guilty about it. Is because like these are real people's lives who are like irreparably damaged.
Yeah.
But to me, it's entertainment, and
You know, I understand what you're saying, but to me, I mean, there is a disconnect for it because I'm always like, oh my God, that's creepy, ew. But then in some regard, I'm like, oh my God, what would I do? Like, I made Patrick watch one and I was like, what would you do if I like secretly was doing all that stuff and I had like a different life in it? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like,
that's such a Patrick answer. That's so funny.
well, the first answer was not very nice because I was like, what would you do if I turned out to be like, you know, crazy like that? You know, just, you know, doing crazy things. And he was like, you already are. And then I was like,
That was
I'm not.
my reaction as well.
I'm not. Whatever. Lots of different people were considered for these roles. One that was really strange to me, Nightmare on Elm Street, back to that.
Ooh.
Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in that film, was considered for the role of Lydia after her Nightmare on Elm Street performance. Langenkamp turned the part down because she didn't want to play a goth girl. I hope she is regretting that decision.
Well, if she didn't want to play one, then maybe she's happy.
You know, but she played such a good final girl. You would think that, you know, I mean, she's been in the horror industry, but you know what? I think that it just meant that it wasn't her part and it was meant for a writer. Kind of like she said, we were waiting on Jenna Ortega to be
Yeah.
born.
I mean,
You know?
it's so fascinating to me too to see like Winona Ryder having a role, and now she's like on a popular television show who are like the kid actors are renowned. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah, and people act like I don't know. It's just so interesting because like they're like we talked about like people recognizing people for different things. People recognize Winona Ryder. They're like, oh yeah, she's in Stranger Things, and I'm like, guys, she's had a whole filmography behind her.
Yeah,
like
true.
go watch her filmography because she's not just the mom. She's not not just the mom from Stranger Things. She has a whole filmography. She's iconic, I promise, especially in the horror community. But Alec Baldwin apparently dislikes this film and was very unhappy with his performance. But
I hear that a lot. You know, I hear some actors don't even watch the movies that they're in. They're like, after we film it, I just can't watch my own performance. I know Daniel Radcliffe is kind of like that. Like he is an actor's actor. Harry Potter, and like he can't watch the Harry Potter movies because he says he hates his acting so bad.
Well, he was also a child, so I can also understand that because you go through different phases, and sometimes we often look back and we're like, ugh, embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand that in some regard, but I think that, I mean, as a child actor, they were fantastic. That's way better than what I.
What's that one scene from the first movie?
Oh yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You're gonna what or not?
Are you gonna stop Snape from getting that stone or not? Something like that. And then, but that was Ron.
That must be another way.
But yeah, crazy to think about this movie. There's so many things that I could talk about, but just for time's sake, I just, I encourage you guys to read and do the research on it because it's just so cool.
I'm sure we're gonna keep talking about it next week.
Oh my God, yeah, there's probably gonna be so many tie-ins.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did want to bring up to you because I just thought it was fascinating. In Beetlejuice's forced wedding, Lydia's dress is bright red. According to the old rhyme about wedding dress colors, married in red, better off dead.
Oh,
Never
okay.
sing.
Interesting. I wonder what you'll be married in.
Not red and not white. But I will say another cool thing is that I love Lydia's suicide letter. That is an iconic scene where she is, planning to having plummeted.
It's so funny how much like
So dramatic.
yeah, exactly.
She's wearing a veil and the operatic music in the background.
Yeah. But it is a representation. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people relate to that, you know. When you're that age, you have strong emotion.
Oh my God. The hormones. We're going through so many changes. And I mean, I feel like she probably feels like she can't relate. But that's another thing that I did want to bring up is that Adam and Barbara presumably can't have children, and then they die. So then they can't, continue with their family planning. And then they take to Lydia almost like they are like a parent, the parents that she doesn't, like that she wants.
The one that she needs. Because even when she comes home from school, her parents are doing some other thing. Yeah. Like, oh, guess you got an A.
Right. Otho apparently was when he was doing the scene where he resurrected Barbara and Adam. Love that scene, by the way. So morbid, grotesque, beautifully done. I love watching their the phases of the decomposition. It's just so
His
like
jaw falls over.
oh, there's such cool makeup for that. It's just beautifully done, and I think that it's just fascinating. He actually was reading lines from an actual poem called "The Warning" by Thomas Lavelle Bedos. Never heard of it, but it's from Death's Jest book. And I was like, oh.
Interesting. Talking about like the makeup for that scene, I was really impressed by the effects of when like Beetlejuice was like throwing things to block Barbara's mouth.
Oh.
Like at first it was like a zipper, and then it was like a piece of metal that's been
It was so real.
Yeah. And I just like the action of him throwing it and it just plopping on her face.
And I love the whole like unzipping it. I was always like, oh, that's satisfying. I don't but talking about the makeup as well, the stop motion or claymation of it was so fascinating. This is the stop motion that they did, and it kind of just walks you through what that kind of looked like in the film and how they broke it down, which is really cool. They're trying to work on this as a documentary as well. It is not completed, but it's supposed to be the documentary for the recently deceased.
Oh, I would love to watch that.
Yeah, it's from people who were on the film and worked on it. It's so fascinating. So they have all of this information and all of the behind the scenes of what it looked like. But that's one of my favorite scenes by far is that that claymation stop motion of their transformation. It's just so creepy.
It is creepy. I mean, like I said, that would terrify me.
It's just so cool. So yeah, they're working on making that a reality. So they have like fan page, no, not fan pages, but social media pages for it. And then here's another one from that same behind the scenes that they're working on. The snake was actually an animatronic that they built, and I did not. Yeah, and part of it was also like digitized in post-production as well, but the original was supposed to not look like or resemble Michael Keaton. So it is really, really fascinating, and it shows some of that of them building it, and then it shows some of like the effects in it. It's just
that is so cool. I would have never guessed.
Neither would I have. Never.
I was thinking during that scene, like having to react to something that isn't there, the snake.
I'm coming for your daughter, Chuck. What's funny is like the name Charlie abbreviated. Some people call Charlie's Chucks. That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't.
We had this whole discussion a year ago.
We probably did.
Okay,
Am I
I forgot which one was the one that bothered her, Bailey?
Richard and Dick?
No,
that one does bother me too.
Oh, it's like a W.
Was it William and Bill?
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was one that isn't in there at all.
Insane.
Yeah.
That's like puppetry. That's weird. It's just crazy.
Crazy impressive.
Crazy impressive for sure.
There's so much art and craft in movie making, especially back then.
Oh my God. I can't imagine like how long it would have taken to do all of that. Especially like, thinking about this movie and also from what we saw with the Little Shop of Horrors, like the amount of work that goes into the production and the details that they have to attend to. Fascinating.
For sure.
But yeah, so I just wanted to show that one, and I'll probably include more links if I didn't show them here, because those are probably going to be more quiet. I did find some deleted scenes or some scenes that were like thrown out. I'll include a link for those because just for time's sake, we've taken up a lot of time. So I want to be mindful of your listening ears as well. But
Mindful.
yeah, very mindful, very demure.
Yeah.
Great trend. I love it. It's so funny. It cracks me up. I don't know why. That's one that I am on top of. I know that trend.
Oh boy, yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about the sequel because obviously this movie in itself is wonderful. And then here's what we know about the sequel. Lydia has a daughter named Astrid, and that's played by Jenna Ortega. And Charles Dietz has passed away in their story because they show that. And Jeffrey Jones, we talked about that because legal reasons. So kind of glad that they're leaving him out of it. But that's all that we know so far. And we know that our main people are coming back. So I mean, I don't know. What would you like to see with the sequel, or what are things that you're most excited for, or least excited for?
Most excited for is actually just to see Beetlejuice again. I mean, like you said, we only got about like 14, 15 minutes screen time with him in the first movie. So I'm excited for another 15.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be like a minute longer or anything like that. I think from what I've seen, I think he didn't want to be the main source of the new movie just because he previously, was not the main source of this movie.
Oh, that's fair.
It's like when he's on screen though, he just encapsulates the audience. To me, it feels like we get so much of him.
Yeah, I mean the first Beetlejuice, the one that we're talking about, is like is a charming movie. It's a weird movie. But whenever he's a force to be reckoned with, like I said, his dialogue is it's not the same as everybody else's, and it's just amazing banter, and the performance completely sells it. His pacing and like timing on his delivery is immaculate. Just like I said a million times, completely embodies the character.
Oh yeah, 1000%. I'm very excited to see this new movie. But I mean, before we talk about the new movie, we kind of have to talk about how we feel about this one. So how would you rank this movie?
Well, I'm so happy this is the first movie we're covering. I think it's
Strong one.
well deserved. Quite a notable one in Tim Burton's filmography.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to cover more of them, and I know it's difficult. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have a favorite Tim Burton movie, and there's so many. So when we're rating them, we have to keep the other ones in mind. Like, what if we rate this one in the future? We're probably going to rate this other one higher, or however we feel. So it's a little difficult. It is a little difficult to rate this one.
Okay.
However, it is a blast. It is completely funny. It does so much attention to detail. The characters just embody everything so well. And I think that this is a perfect iteration of what the movie is meant to be. I think there's not a single part of it that fails to live up to what it's meant to represent. So for me, it's a 10.
I am going to meet you right there. I was going to say 10 out of 10 for me. No doubt in my mind. It's just fun. There's not a flaw in this film at all. It's just a great time. And it represents so many cool things, and it does make you question your own mortality, and you're like, what would I do? What would I do as a ghost? Like but it also has a lot of heart to it as well with, at the end, all of the families come together. It's just sweet.
It is very sweet. Like people get a happy ending, except for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, except for Beetlejuice.
How do you feel about the movie, Bailey?
Oh my gosh, I love the movie. It's definitely one of my favorite like Halloween time Tim Burton movies of all time. I don't know why it's this movie in particular that I enjoy. I think just something about the Maitlands being so down to earth and just like, oh, I guess we're dead now. And our houses being like our cute, nice, traditional house with lots of characters being taken over by these people who want to modernize it. And they have like a really goth, like borderline suicidal daughter. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's fun. It's so quirky. I love the art design and the set design too. It's so great.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a lot to like about it. And this is also like, my family has loved Beetlejuice since I was a kid, so I've seen bits and pieces of it since I was a kid, and then of course I watched the whole movie as like an adult. I'm sure I saw the whole movie as a kid too, I just didn't understand or like attach myself to it as much, but so it's like nostalgic for me in some ways, and then as like an adult I'm even more attached to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So what's your rating?
On a 1 to 10 scale, or
1 to 10?
Yeah, 1 and 10.
I don't know. give it like a 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
And I just wish that there was a little bit more Beetlejuice.
Fair enough.
That is, I guess that there is a complaint. That would be the only complaint.
And I guess a good reason to be excited for that sequel.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very excited for that. We'll be seeing it this week, but you guys won't get to hear about it until the next.
That's right.
But we'll have more coming. We'll be, excited to share all these episodes with you guys. And of course, we're talking about Beetlejuice next. And then we'll be talking about Sweeney Todd and Dark Shadows. So this is Tim Burton part 1 of a little small season.
Yeah. There's just so many movies. I mean, but don't get us wrong. We'll be covering quite a bit of his films this year. We're just kind of breaking it up a little bit so we can cover some other franchises in between.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we thank you guys for listening, for bearing with us, and for being patient for our next episode.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm so happy to be back. I really am excited to do this podcast, and I'm happy for you guys to listen. And so if you guys are excited about Tim Burton like I am, I think it's going to be a great season.
And happy Spooktember. We're excited for the spooky season. We are embarking upon the time of the year that is the best. So just stick around because we have a lot of fun things in store for you guys. So.
Yes, that's true. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for listening, and follow us on Fright Flight Pod on all of our social medias, and email us at frightflypod@gmail.com.
Don't let your period suck over the spooky season. Check out our partners Vampons, the tampons made by real vampires.
They are FSA, HSA eligible, so use that if you have it on your insurance plan. That's what it's there for. You can buy them online with our code FrightFlightPod for 10% off.
They're eco-friendly and animal cruelty-free. They're a great company.
And if you support the pod, then we can get better equipment to do cooler things.
That's right. We want to get an elevator installed in the studio. There's a long flight of stairs we have to take every time to get to the studio.
You know what? An exercise sucks. We recommend you exercise your demons, but don't exercise. But yeah, we'll see you next week, friends, with Beetlejuice.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
If they ever made a third one, it would be Beetlejuice.
Geraldine, you just said it. Whoa. Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa, edited and produced by me, Bailey B., and music composition by Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa.